Hello, and welcome to a reading of Another Name for the Devil by Scarlett Siren. You may follow along or just listen to me read. As a warning, the author has included, there are some pretty violent scenes involving the characters. One in particular involves a very graphic implied gay bashing. These scenes result in traumatic injury, but this is a vampire AU, so infer what you will. I don't kill main characters off, but I would steer clear of this fic if you are sensitive to anything I have tagged. Chapter 1. Sang-hwa took one last long drag of his cigarette before snubbing it underfoot, glancing over at Yosung as he did the same. It was a chilly night, but that had never much bothered either of them. The warmth of smoke in their lungs did as much good as it would do harm. That was none. When one was a vampire, one did not need to worry about such trivial things as the weather or carcinogens, or even the moronic fucking motorist who blasted his horn as he narrowly swerved by them in the crosswalk, trying to beat the light. Yosung glowered after him, half tempted to blow out his tires on a turn and watch him craft his own demise. But at Sang-hwa's quelling glance, he abandoned the thought. The two of them hardly went out anymore, and they were starting to remember why. Despite all the laws and protections and treaties which claimed the contrary, there was still a very stark line in the sand between vampires and humans. Discrimination wasn't strictly legal, but that didn't stop establishments from finding reasons to conveniently not have room for their kind on a given night, which made their options few. Vampire-only clubs were often precocious places which catered to the partying kind. When one was a newly made vampire, it was easy to slip into debaucherous habits, but Sang-hwa and Yosung were very old. They spent most evenings in front of an artificial fire, reading ancient texts written in dead languages which mortals had long since forgotten. Droll, perhaps, to some. Even to them, sometimes. Which was how they'd found themselves walking the streets of downtown Seoul, looking for something, anything, to occupy them. You know, we should pass this along to the Vampire Human Relations Councils, or it will never be resolved, Yosung said as they turned a corner, spurned by yet another human-run establishment. They were too easily spotted out with their deathly pallid skin and bright eyes. It will only cause more discourse. Let it be. Sang-hwa soothed, needlessly shoving his hands into his pockets. Of course you want to let it be. I wanted to go out tonight, and so far all we've done is spend less than an hour in a blood bar and get turned away from every human establishment from here to the river, Yosung grumbled. I don't know how San enjoys these clubs. They're a racket. He doesn't go for the music, Sang-hwa murmured, halting suddenly and lifting his chin. Do you hear that? The unending bustle of this insufferable city? Yes, constantly, Yosung huffed. A very distinct sound reached him then, however, and his head jerked up. Oh, that. The two of them shared a glance before turning down the next alley at a renewed pace, following the noise. At the mouth of the alley were 8 men. 7 were in all black, wearing bandanas and face masks over their noses and mouths. A few of them had bats, one a long chain, but the others were just using their fists as boots as they all collectively attacked the 8th man between them. He was young, couldn't have been more than 22 or so, with his silver hair done up in a perfect swoop. His light clothing was a stark contrast to his attackers. Sang-hwa spotted a ripped-up jacket discarded nearby, but the boy was now in just a satiny pastel top and leather pants, face done up with makeup and highlight. He heard the other 7 men spitting a chorus of slurs, and it was obvious, then, why they had attacked him. Step away, Sang-hwa snarled, voice low and deadly, but somehow booming through the cold stone alley. The men turned, looking ready to strike, until they laid eyes on him. Oh shit, they're vamps. Let's get out of here, one of them shouted, and in a stumbling frenzy, they bolted toward the other end of the alley. We should stop them, Yosung cried. And Sang-hwa began to run after them, but the boy in the pastel satin coughed, suddenly, a glob of blood staining his lips. Forget them, someone muttered, sliding to a halt right next to the boy. He knelt, cocking his head at him and placing a hand on his chest. Oh, Yosung, he hasn't got long. What? Yosung ran to his side, falling to his knees as well. I can't hear it as well as you, the way the blood moves. Xianghua shook his head, the way he struggles for air. Listen. The boy took a wheezing breath, and Yosung heard it, the way the splintered ribs tore into his lungs. Yosung's face contorted in agony. What's your name, boy? Wu Yang, he gritted out, garbled on his own blood. Wu Yang, do you know what we are? Yosung asked gently. The boy nodded. The damage to your internal organs, it's too much for your human doctors to heal. If we move you from this place, you may not make it to a hospital. Don't leave me, Wu Yang sobbed, his hand coming up to grab at the sleeve of Yosung's coat. Several of his fingers were twisted in ways they should not have been, bloody and bruised. We won't, Xianghua assured, sweeping the boy's fringe, matted with blood, out of his eyes. Listen, we will try to take you to a hospital if you want, or you can allow one of us to save you. Do you understand what that means? You mean you'd turn me into one of you, a vampire, Wu Yang surmised. Yes, your body would be able to heal, but your heart would never beat again. Your life would end, but begin anew. We will only do this if you ask, Xianghua explained, taking the boy's other hand into his own. It is not a small decision, but it is an urgent one. Your life slips away, child. Tell us, what would you have us do? Are you certain merely making him a familiar would not suffice? Yosung hissed in a nearly inaudible whisper. Xianghua shook his head. The internal damage is too much. We would need to turn him. Yes, Wu Yang choked out, tightening his grip on the both of them. Please, I don't want to die. Shh. All right. It's all right. Just close your eyes, Xianghua soothed, gently running his fingers over his face until his eyes fell closed. He looked at Yosung, nodding. When you wake again, you will be a child of the night, and you will never suffer this kind of pain again, Yosung murmured like a promise, cradling the boy gently in his arms as he pulled him up just enough to sink his fangs into his neck.